All right. Hello, everybody. We are on the third installment of my AP Hug video notes series. I'm slowly getting the hang of this, so hopefully this one's showing some improvement. Today we're going to talk about topic 1.6, Scales of Analysis. This is probably the most important video notes you've seen so far because this is something that is going to stick with us for every unit and for just about every issue we talk about. These concepts will come into play. So what's this all about? This is about the fact that an issue can play out differently, even in places that are in close proximity to one another. Okay, that if you are talking about an issue on one scale, say the global scale, well, that issue could be very different locally to where you live or where a family member lives. Which leads us to the second standard, which is going to help us understand, the differences in some of these issues and how that affects people in those places. So there's two types of scales, and there's two types of the concept of scale. So map scale, that's going to come up a little bit later, but the one that we're really going to focus on is the concept of spatial extent. This is meant to help you understand and realize what you're focusing on. Are you talking about an issue and talking about it from the continent perspective? From there, you could break it down further and talk about it from a country perspective, and it could change the data or the issue. And then from there, you could go to a regional perspective, and again, you could see more changes and more variations, and from there, you could go to the city level. And from the cities, of course, you can break it down even more. Neighborhoods are very different, right? Go to different parts of our hometown. It's different characteristics, different types of stores, okay? But people don't realize that if they're just talking about our town in general. A couple quick examples. The United States, by every measure, is wealthier than the country of Tanzania. But if you break that down further, you would recognize and realize that not everybody in America is wealthy. And there are millions of people who live below the poverty line and many who live in extreme poverty that we often only associate with developing countries. My favorite particular example to help you understand this is, let's pretend you had a kid in your third grade class who was 5'4". Now, this student is very tall for a third grader, not just in that class, but any third grade class. But compared to all of humanity, that third grader is still a short human being. So this is all about the idea of context when we talk about spatial extent. Right? What exactly are we looking at in regards to an issue? So this is a fun example that I think will help clarify this idea of scales of analysis. So there's a fast food chain called Whataburger. We don't have any around this area, which I think is why this is such a good example for us. So I'm going to show you a map that is very clear, and it shows you every country in the world that has a Whataburger. There it is. That's the map. One country in the world. So this map sort of implies that not only is it in the United States, but it's in every part of the United States because the whole thing is colored in orange. Well, let's break this down further and find out if that's actually true, even though we know it's not. Let's look at it at the state level. Clearly, Whataburger is a southern fast food chain, right? It's got locations from in the east, Florida and Georgia, all the way to the west in Arizona, but nothing above the south. So now, let's break this down further. at a county level. So now if you take a look at Georgia, okay, over here, right, there seems to be only one county in Georgia that has a Whataburger. And actually Atlanta is up here. So it's sort of surprising that, you know, the largest city in Georgia wouldn't necessarily have one of these places. But again, the point is to show you the idea of scale, that, you know, as we break this down further to find where Whataburgers are located, it becomes more and more sparse. Then one more map, we can look at specific locations of Whataburger. This is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. All right, so now you can really pinpoint and see exactly where they are. So if you just pause the video here, take a look at these questions or prompts, these three, and based on what I said for that last slide, answer them in your notebook, and we're going to review these in class, okay? If you have to obviously rewind, go ahead and do that. Now, the other concept of scale is map scale. All right, we just talked about spatial extent. Now we're looking at map scale. This one, you're not going to have to do any conversions during the course of the year. You just need to understand the patterns of these numbers. So if you look at this map, okay, here's a map of the United States. The representative fraction is 1 over 94 million. Okay, and then as you go further down, right here, we're focused on just the southeast. We have 1 over 37 million. Then we're focused on the states of South Carolina, Georgia, and part of Alabama, and we get 1 over 16 million. And then finally, we've zoomed all the way into the city of Atlanta, and you get 1 over 1.3 million. Now, what it's showing you is this, that one, so let's actually just take the city of Atlanta to make it a little easier. 1 inch equals 20 real miles. Okay, let me repeat that. So if you were to measure this map right here, just this one, every inch that you measure equals 20 real miles on the surface of the earth. If you come up here, every inch equals 250 miles on the surface of the earth. So this type of scaling is what helps keep the representation of these places accurate. Okay, think of what we discussed with map projections. It's a similar concept. The part I think that gets a little confusing with this is you can see up here with this sliding scale, a small scale image is actually the entirety of the United States in this example. And a large scale image is the small local picture of Atlanta. And the way that you can associate that is to understand that it's a small scale because it's vague. You're not getting a lot of detail, right? I can see the country of the United States in that top map. It's showing me the state outlines, but that's all I'm really getting from it. As we move closer into Atlanta, all of a sudden I start getting more detail, okay? And it's more zoomed in. So I like to sort of think of it as I'm getting a larger amount of information. That's why it's large scale in this picture. All right. And really, the map makers could have, with this image, put more cities and towns on the map of Georgia because they have the room now, whereas up here you can't fit more than just the word Atlanta, right? It already comes across all these other states. So again, the way that I like to think of it is a map like these, I get a small amount of information, whereas these I start getting larger amounts of information, thus it's large scale. Now this doesn't just work with maps, this works with images and locations. So here's the Meadowlands, right? Home of the Jets, which I not so proudly root for, but I live with it. So I'm going to ask you the question that's on the slide. Which one is the large scale image of MetLife Stadium? I will give you 10 more seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a quick 10 seconds. The answer is the picture on the right, the zoomed in interior view of MetLife Stadium. Okay, because the focal point is MetLife, right? So now that I've zoomed all the way into the stadium, I can more clearly read the numbers on the field. I can better see the fact that there's shading in the way of, of the turf, right? There's light green, there's dark green. I can see that the seats are actually multicolored, different versions of gray. You can't see that from the zoomed out overhead version. All right, so there's a large amount of information I'm getting, a large amount of detailed information I'm getting from this picture on the right that I'm not getting from the one on the left. So as far as why scale is important, you need to understand data patterns, right? Determine, who and where someone needs help. This is often used by the government. Concentration of traits. So if you are a business, right, and you are selling, you're selling sneakers, okay, you probably want to be in a place where lots of people shop and there's a high population. You're just going to get more people coming to your store. A better example is if you are selling bicycles. If you see that there's an area or a neighborhood with lots of bike paths and you have information that people like to bike to work or they cycle on the weekend as a hobby, you're more likely going to put your store in that area versus, a place where people do fishing on the weekends, right? You don't need a bike to fish. Scale is important to help understand variations, to understand where these differences start to occur, and to help understand how cities or towns have different needs. We're going to talk about the concept of ethnic enclaves later this year. Think about, you have Little Italy, or in Miami you have Little Havana, there's Chinatown, Little Korea. There's all different ethnic enclaves that require different needs and services. And then it allows you, ultimately people take different interpretations from these, and we're going to spend more time on that in class. But basically, you can walk away with either a misunderstanding of a concept or a better understanding of the concept if you know what scale you're looking at it. Okay. There is an article that I have probably assigned for you for homework, so double check that I did. And if I did, check out how this is going to work. So we're going to click this link here. Well, I'm going to post the link for you, but I left it there so that I could click it. Because I'm going to ask you to take a look at this examination of the 2016 election, which begins to break it down by scale. Okay, and my computer is a little slow to load, as you can see. I have the spinning wheel. Here we go. So the reason why I'm clicking on this is for you to successfully do this assignment. You have to click on the hyperlinks. You can actually skip the first one, all right? But when you get down here, where it says a Democrat would post an almost psychedelically sketched out cartogram, click that. It'll open up a new page. Slow to load, hang on. And reveal this image. Okay, I'm not going to explain too much about it because what you're going to interpret will be on the map, on the directions, and also within the article. Then you would go back to the original article. So again, you have to bear with my computer for a second as we are slow to load. Go back. There we go. Continue further. The next paragraph. A Republican would then put up, toward the end of this, here's a hyperlink that you need to click. And then this is the map that's pictured above. You could click this to get a more detailed image of it. All right. So ultimately, this is just to help you understand the sense of scale, to talk about a topic that you are very much aware of, which was the 2016 election, and then finish off reading the article and answer the questions and be ready to discuss it in class. All right. So that's it for our third video. I will see everybody in class.